Yes.
Good evening, everyone. Good evening. Welcome to St. John's Lutheran Church, the Imagined Place. I am Russell Meyer, pastor here. Happy to have everyone here this evening for this special Good Friday service with the well. Susan Rogers and I have done a thing or two together over the years. I'm very happy to do this tonight. A couple of things I'd like to point out to you. If you have need of nature, go that way, right? The door is supposed to swing on its own, so it may close at some time. We don't think there are any ghosts in the building, but you never know. It's been around a moment, right? Just a word about St. John's. Some of you may know that the city took such kindness to us to condemn our Bible school, and we're rebuilding it, we're renovating, and it's going to, we're calling it the Imagine Center. We have the Imagine Garden, we have the Imagine House with 11 people from Afghanistan, refugees in it right now. And so the whole campus we're calling the Imagine Place. But it'll become a cultural arts center. We'll be doing a lot of programming and things. Our big dream is that we put a music studio in it so young people can learn to mix music. And, you know, we've got a couple of musicians in the neighborhood. They're going to be working with it. So, you know, imagine. We take the name from our stained glass window up here, which is the last chapters of the Bible. It's the new Jerusalem come down from the new heaven to the new earth with the tree of life in the center of the city and bridging the water of life and leaves of healing for all the nations. And so John Lennon wrote Imagine from those chapters. There's no need for throne or altar in the New Jerusalem, city of healing and peace. So that's what we're about tonight, is standing at the tree of life for healing and restoration. We've chosen a designate for a free will offering if you want to give one. Lasagna Love. Everybody know what Lasagna Love is? Neighborhoods here making lasagna, people who need dinner for hungry people in the community. So if you'd like to contribute to the Lasagna Lady and support feeding people who are hungry in the neighborhood, we invite you to put cash in or your little QR code, just note Lasagna Love, and we'll report back to everyone how much was contributed tonight. So thank you for being with us. A few words from Susan.
I got it. It's not the first time. Good evening, everyone. I'm Susan Rogers, pastor of the Well at Springfield here in the neighborhood, and we're grateful to be partnering tonight for this Good Friday opportunity to be together. We call it Good Friday, but for those first experiencing this day, it was not good. It was a day of disillusionment, a day full of fear, and a day full of uncertainty. Not knowing what was going to happen, but knowing for sure that things were not going to turn out as everyone hoped they would. It was a day when the future was looking very, very bleak. And so tonight we have this opportunity to be together and to reflect on the final words of Jesus, these final 7 phrases. And we get to hear them also alongside stories from friends in our community who are brave enough to come and offer their real stories to us. And we thank you for that gift. Stories are a powerful gift. And we are grateful, and we want to show our gratitude tonight instead of by applause. We just want to, when each storyteller is done, just hold those stories in our hearts tonight in silence. And so I just want to invite you, after a storyteller shares, if you would just place your hand on your heart as a sign that we are holding the story in our hearts, that you are seen, that you are held, and that you are indeed in this place loved. So that's how we will walk through this evening together. Patrick is going to say something.
I'm not officially on the docket, however, as long as I'm going to be running up and down saying people's names and things like that, I might as well introduce myself. My name is Patrick Young. I'm the founder of the Story Arts Workshop. We do a monthly storytelling open mic over here in Hyperion in Springfield. If you have a yen to tell a story or to hear a story on first Thursday of the month over at Hyperion, we'd love to see you, hear your story, or just have your company. In any case, I believe the next order of business is a song for us by Mama Blue.
Amen.
Yeah.
Amen.
And if you know the song, please feel free to sing along. I'm a humble servant. Ready? At the cross, where I first saw the light, and the burden of my heart rolled away. It was there by faith I received my sight, and now I am happy all the day. At the cross, where I first saw the light, and the burden of my heart rolled away. It was there by faith I received my sight, and now I am happy all the day. What is the crime that I have done that He hung upon the tree? Oh, what beauty! Oh, and grace unknown, and love beyond degree. Everybody with me. At the cross, where I first saw the light, and the burden of my heart rolled away. It was there by faith I received my sight, and now I am happy all the day. Thank you, Ron.
Well, that was very lovely, thank you. The first word is forgive them, for they know not what they do. Some are men.
Good evening. So it was about
I guess about 3 weeks ago. And it was one of those really beautiful spring days that we've been having where the blue sky just seemed limitless. And you could smell new growth and spring in the air. And it was just that perfect kind of day that invited you to put off whatever you were doing, just be outside. So I joined some of my friends and we went to this place called the Feed Mill, which is a farm, and they also make great food. And out there they had these little ducklings, and so I was chasing them with my camera. My friend noticed that one of these little ducklings wasn't going anywhere. And so she asked the owner about the duckling, and I guess the night before there had been an enthusiastic 3-year-old that handled it, and since then it hadn't really been moving. And they figured, well, with everything entailed, they just let nature take its course. If you guys have ever been around chicks, like they pick on the ones that aren't well, and so this duck had been picked on all night. And he was in a really sad state. So my friend, she's like, well, I think I might be able to help. I'll take her. She had some ducks and plays and all this stuff. So she's like, Summer, do you want to give this duckling Reiki? And I'm like, yeah, I would love, first off, to hold the baby duckling because it's really cute. And I love doing Reiki. Reiki is this form of hands-on healing where basically all you do is just funnel love or chi force energy to another living creature. And one of the best benefits of doing this is that you get some too. So not only can you maybe help something, but you end up feeling really good. And maybe it's just because we focus on unconditional love. So I'm holding this little duckling, and it was easily the softest, sweetest thing I've ever held in my life. I would pet it with the softest, gentlest, and it was so soft. It felt like you weren't even touching me. And I held this duckling and I started giving it Reiki with this intention of forgive those, for they know not what they do. And I also was sending this loving energy to this 3-year-old boy. Because I know that sometimes I have harmed things completely unintentionally and have felt horrible. So I'm this holy little duckling, forgive them, for they know not what they do. Envisioning this 3-year-old boy and just all this love. And as I'm focusing on this 3-year-old, I start to see 3-year-old me. She's not very happy. My father was bipolar. And so I'm like, yeah, I don't want to think about that. Ducky. And forgive them, we know not what they do. That sweet, innocent 3-year-old boy, he didn't know what he was doing. And I come back to myself and I see my father. And so what I should have mentioned before this sunny day started is I woke up not really feeling quite as sunny as I remembered for a long time. It's been about 4 years and my father had passed and I went through this really bad divorce. And then there was that whole COVID thing and like some other lifey stuff, and I just didn't feel very shiny. And in contrast to the spring day, I really wanted to feel some of that fresh newness inside of me. And so my father comes up, and I'm like, I really don't want to think. My little ducky, he's gonna get better. I know he's gonna do it. I know he can do it. And I start thinking again about forgive those for they know not what they do. And now I'm seeing not just my father in my mind, but if anybody's ever suffered abuse, it creates these porous boundaries, and we end up letting all kinds of narcissistic characters into our lives, and there they were marching through my mind. was over my heart, and I'm like, I'm not feeling a whole lot of love right now. Like somehow just this statement, forgive them, for they know not what they do, and my willingness to forgive this child and this duck, and like try to bring love in. And maybe I did have an intention of wanting to feel new again, to feel that spark again that just wasn't in me lately. And with my father and his bipolar life and all of that, like after he died, he was a really great man too. And so while he was alive, I really focused on that greatness and that brilliance. There was a lot of other stuff too, but I didn't want, there wasn't any room for that. So when he died, I had so much anger, frustration, and just plain resentment that I haven't been able to remember him with a smile for 4 years. I got through the memorial, and then after that, I'm like, well, I'm done. And then these other people that were going through my mind, these weren't people that didn't know what they were doing. They're narcissistic characters that manipulated me, and I could go through and spend at least a half an hour telling you why I was so right and they were so wrong. And I don't need to forgive people because I'm just going to channel my unconditional love to this little duck, okay? And that was all I was going to do. But I could see my heaviness, and I felt like a troll on that spring day next to that duck. And I felt like maybe it was because I was juxtaposed to so much lightness. This day, this duckling, this 3-year-old somewhere that would hopefully recover well, that I was willing to give up and just surrender and say, you know what, God, Jesus, I don't know. I don't know how to forgive these people. And I don't even know if I want to. But if it will save this duck, I am like totally willing to put myself aside. And so I did. I did because for a moment I was willing to believe in this miracle of healing and life beyond me. And I'm like, I can forgive. Just help me. Just help me. Just shine up this piece of coal on the inside. Oh, me feel good again. And I don't know. I don't know what happened that day. I can tell you the ducky did live. And I can tell you that I'm not about to call my ex-husband anytime soon. But I can remember my father with the love that we used to have, and that I know that he did have for me despite himself. Thank you.
Today, you will be with me in paradise. Ryan Sinclair.
Good evening. Today you will be with me in paradise. And my story is about 2 of my sisters that are gone to paradise. And I'm reminded at Calvary when Jesus was on the cross and there were these 2 thieves with him. And one was like, well, why don't you save us? And and save yourself because that's who you are. You know, she had this worldly vision of God doing stuff like humans, um, exacting revenge, and keeping rain from falling on Christians, making people float and walk on water, you know, just defying the laws of nature. And the other sister is like the one who said, you don't know who you're talking to. This is the Almighty. And, you know, we need to revere him and respect him. And to her he said, well, today you will be with me in paradise. And then in other times in life, the roles reverse. But on the day of their transition, um, my older sister, she was diagnosed with brain cancer. And within 3 weeks, she went from this vibrant person to this lady who couldn't get up out of bed. But what she could do is say, Father, I'm ready. I want to go. And she made her transition. And I do believe that's what she wanted. But it was a loss because this was the one, she was 16 when I was born. And people in our neighborhood thought that I was her son, you know, because they thought like she went down south and had a baby and come back. But it wasn't, you know, but, you know, we didn't have no phone, so I couldn't take no pictures and show where I was born, stuff like that. So she was there. And then my baby sister, that was the one I had my first altercation about, because somebody slapped her. And, you know, God was with him in the form of a car that I couldn't get under because it crawled up under the car. There was nowhere to run. He wasn't faster than me. He wasn't stronger than me, so he got up on the car. I asked God for the strength to lift the car, but he's like, no. So he's paid enough. He's paid the price. And so I watched these ladies throughout my life. I've been knowing them since I've been knowing anybody. And, you know, looking at the parallels between those two people on the cross, and then looking at the fact that those roles reversed over time, back and forth, like ping pong with believing in God and not believing and not believing. And I remember when my younger sister first got sick, we was like, we want to come and pray. She said, if anybody start praying for me, I'm going to run out the building. Can't run. But anyway, you know, so she was that kind of person for a while. But when she came here for my older sister's funeral, you know, she was like, she's going on to heaven and I can't wait to be there because we both had lost one of our sisters already about 20 years ago to cancer. So she's like, I'm going to be with my sister. And, you know, it's like, this day you will be with me in paradise. And I'm here like, well, what about me? Where do I get to go? And I don't want to go really, but I do kind of want to see them again. Not right now, it'll take time. You know, so it's like thinking about those folks. I always talk about they're more here now in my heart than when they were alive. Because I would have to drive over here to see my sister. She lived in Springfield. I live way on Chafee Road. That's kind of, then my other sister lived in Chicago, so I had to fly home on special occasions. But now, every time a Billie Holiday song comes on, my sister's here. And every time some young lady is being threatened or abused or being talked down to, my baby sister's here. And hopefully for that person, there's a car they can get up on. But, you know, the presence of those two folks in my life has a lot of influence on who I am and why I am where I am. And it was hard. In those last days, I couldn't go to the house. I couldn't even do it. And we had to go home for my little sister. And it was rough, but I saw everybody that I've been knowing for almost my entire life. They all came through, and we all talked about stuff, about Kelly. And then that's when some of them heard about my oldest. And so, this day you should be with me in paradise. What I do know is that God is omnipresent, and He's all the time. So He's here now and yesterday and tomorrow. So this day that they're in paradise with Him is this day that I'm in paradise with Him and them. I see birds. I see rabbits. I think of my sisters. I see a little white car going 3 miles an hour. Think of my sister. I see a wheelchair because my sister got paralyzed. We bought her one of the electric wheelchairs. And I think she put mags on it. They say she was flying down in the wheelchair. So anytime I see one of the electric scooters, I think of my sister. And it's just those words pop in my head all day and all night. And sometimes I'll wake up thinking about stuff. Whenever I had to paint, my sister was an artist. And whenever I had to sing or dream, that was my little baby sister. She used to be singing with a hairbrush in the mirror and somebody's wig on and being somebody else, and those two, they molded my attitude and my caring and my hope for women. They taught me a lot to watch out for these guys. Anyway, that's another story. Those were my protectors, my heart protectors. They examined everybody that I think I wanted to talk to. And they gave a thumbs up, a thumbs down, or a HE double hockey stick, They kept me out of a lot of situations I probably would have been in. Might not have been so good. So losing both of those folks in the period of 3 months, it was a little rough. It was hard. But I know this day, they're with Him in paradise. And in my memories, they're with me every day.
Behold your son. Behold your mother. Jim Wolfe.
When my son was born, he was quiet. He was quiet, and he was still, and he was gray. The doctors resuscitated him. I was told that they cleared his airways, they connected him to a CPAP machine, and then I heard him cry. And I was so relieved to hear him cry. He needed to go to NICU, but they let me hold him first. And when I held him and looked down, he was pink, and he snuggled up against me. And even though he was covered in tubes, he was perfect. He was so beautiful. And I wasn't scared that he'd almost died because he was here now and he was perfect. He only had to stay in the NICU overnight. They let us take him home the next day. And the next few weeks, they went by in a blur. We were tired, we were stressed, but we were giddy with excitement. This is nothing unusual for parents with a newborn. We took him to the doctor when he was 3 weeks old, and they said he was losing weight. He was losing weight rapidly. At 20 days old, he was below his birth weight. He was only 8 pounds. Over the past couple of weeks, we had been to many doctors, lactation consultants, so I said he was fine. The doctor, he didn't know what he was talking about. My son was fine, he was perfect. So then the doctor showed me all of the excess skin that was wrinkled around his skull from all the weight he had lost. How even naked on a scale, he was still and he was quiet. And I looked at him and I saw the gray little baby again. So we took him to the hospital, and over the next few days, we learned what had happened. Some of his problems were physiological. Like many newborns, the muscles in his esophagus and his stomach weren't fully developed. So he spit up, and he spit up more than usual. So they gave us a different formula to try. They taught us how to feed him laying on his side, so it was easier for him to digest the food. We held him up for 30 minutes after every feeding, so he had enough time to digest it. We fed him every 2 hours, waking him and putting a cold towel to him to keep him awake. And then we learned that some of his problems were from our inexperience. He was spitting up, so I thought he was full. We had learned that, a baby's stomach is only as big as a walnut. And I thought he had had enough food. And he was sleepy. He was such a sleepy little baby. And I interpreted his tiredness as satisfaction. So if he fell asleep while I was feeding him, I took the bottle away. We learned that he wasn't sleepy, he was lethargic because he was starving. So much for mother's intuition that I let him sleep 21 hours a day, 22 hours a day, as he slowly wasted away. Over the next week, he got better, he gained weight, he was alert, and I didn't know how I didn't realize he was sick before, just seeing all of the things he could do and all of the movements that he had. But he was okay. We took him home, and we took precautions. Like the doctor recommended, we bought a scale, and we weighed him every day, sometimes twice a day, sometimes before and after every feeding. And we bought a stethoscope. No one told me to buy a stethoscope, and I didn't know what I was listening for, but I just liked hearing him breathe. We packed a hospital bag, and we kept it in our car because we were vigilant that if there was something wrong, we would know, and we would take care of it right away. The experience changed me. I've always been an anxious person, but this was something different. When I looked at my son, all I could see was him dying. He had almost died twice, and I didn't think that we were going to get a third chance at it. I couldn't feed him, change him, give him a bath without visualizing horrible, violent injuries that he would inevitably sustain. I was afraid to be alone with him because it didn't feel safe. In my constant nightmare daydreams, I was the one hurting him. And of course I didn't want to hurt him, but it just felt like something that was going to happen, and the harder I tried not to think about it, the worse it became and the worse my thoughts became. My husband, he understood the scale and the stethoscope in the hospital bag, but he couldn't understand me now and how I had changed so much. If he went and mowed the lawn, within 2 hours I had gone from dread to panic to complete detachment, and he would come in and find me completely catatonic. So I went to a therapist. The therapist told me postpartum depression is hormonal, so there's really no point in seeing a therapist. I went to a second therapist. Every session, she asked me the same question. Do you think you have postpartum depression? Yes, definitely. And she would say, I hope not. That would just be so terrible. How could these mental health professionals have helped me? The first one had a profound misunderstanding of mental illness. And even if I was just hormonal, I still had to learn to cope with that. And the second therapist, she was too afraid of postpartum depression to ever understand what I was going through, let alone help me. So I called a therapist that I had seen years ago, but she no longer took my insurance. And I told her, I can't afford to pay out of pocket, and I'm not in your network, but I need help. She saw me for free. And finally, I had someone who wasn't afraid of my suffering, who could be there to listen and bear witness to what I was going through and what I had gone through. And gradually, I was able to release the guilt that had been incubating inside of me like a parasite. It took time, but I got better. I'm not cured, but I feel better. My son is 18 months now, and when I look at him, I see my fears, but I can look past them, and I see my gratitude for this strong little guy who's been through so much already. And when he beholds me, he sees his mother, not perfect, but trying, and that's enough.
My God, why have you forsaken me? Nadine McAvoy.
Thank you all for being here, and thank you for the invite to tell the story. I've not done this before, and I'm very impressed with the recall of all of the previous storytellers. So I'm going to have some paper here, and please forgive me for having to refer to the story that I've worked on. And again, thank you for having me. Yesterday was my birthday. Not my real birthday, but my new birthday. My rebirth, if you will indulge me. On April 6th, 2022, I received an autologous stem cell transplant to treat multiple myeloma at the Mayo Clinic. For those of us who have this plasma cell cancer and who go through a stem cell treatment, that day is forever called your birthday. So yesterday I celebrated. I was 43 years old in 2013 on the day I received a phone call from my primary care doctor. I had recently been to the office for a physical and was expecting that they might call and share some blood results from testing. Here's how that phone call played out. I was driving around the beaches, doing errands ahead of picking up my young children from school, mom stuff. My cell phone rings and I see that it's a call from my doctor. No big deal. I pick up the phone and keep driving. There's an unusual result in your recent blood work, she says. It's not the office clerk calling. It's my actual doctor. And that should have been a clue that something was going on. In my head, I'm still thinking, oh, high cholesterol, that's a thing. She continues, you have an M spike, and I'm going to refer you to a hematologist for further testing. At this point, I pulled the car over in order to actually pay attention to what she's telling me. This is not a high cholesterol call. This is something entirely different, and I'm not really sure what she's telling me. I know I probably asked a few questions. What those questions are, I don't know. My head was spinning. The call ended. But thankfully, we live in the technology age. It's 2013. I am in my car, pulled over. I can look up those words I don't know. I can do that right now. I'm sure you all know this, but it's not a good idea to Google for medical information. My advice to you all is don't ever Google for medical information, especially before you're supposed to pick up your kids from school and all of those things that were happening. Of course, I'm a lot wiser now at 53 than I was at 43. So anyway, I started typing into the search button on my phone. The first word I type in is M-spike. That was the word that came up. An M-spike is detected in the blood of patients, of myeloma patients. Well, that's a new word, myeloma. That word did not come up with the doctor. So next I type in hematologist. I think I know what a hematologist is, but I just want to confirm what she's told me. A hematologist is a doctor that studies blood issues, disorders, blood cancer, basically. And so finally that new word, multiple myeloma. Multiple myeloma is an incurable plasma cell cancer. Incurable. And that's when I lost it. Now let me take you back a little bit. I grew up right here in Jacksonville, in Atlantic Beach. I did beach kid stuff like tanning. It was the 80s. Riding my bike around, playing in the ocean. I had a great childhood. I know all these things, but I have a story here that I'm going to read. I have and continue to have wonderful involved parents and 3 younger siblings. I was a good student, a star athlete. I loved performing and singing in local theater. Players by the Sea was like my home away from home. After I graduated from Fletcher High School, I went off to Florida State, and I met the love of my life, who's here tonight. Kevin McAvoy and I met when we were freshmen, and we've been a duo ever since. We ran off to Las Vegas in 1995 and got hitched at the Little Chapel of the West. In 2000, Kevin and I started growing our family, first giving birth to a roly-poly little boy named Eli Blue, followed in 2003 by a long-legged little blonde we called Harper. And finally, in 2005, Maya Adelaide, our rainbow freak, as she liked to refer to herself as a young child, was born. And you can see her here. She's a beautiful young woman. I had a perfect family of 5, a precious family that is still the most important part of my life. Becoming and being a mother to this wonderful was the most wonderful, terrifying, frustratingly enlightening experience I have ever had. These children, our family, is the center of my universe. Their growth, their well-being, their happiness, that's who I am. Anyway, where was I? So I'm sitting in my car, having just received the news from my doctor that I have this M spike. It's September 2013. Eli is 13, Harper is 11, and Maya is 9 years old. Multiple myeloma, incurable plasma cell cancer. My God, My God, why have you forsaken me? What have I done to deserve this early death sentence, this punishment that will deny me the ability to continue raising my children, to have no hope of ever meeting my grandchildren, to lose fancy of living out our retirement in a little RV, traveling the country, the cutest campground couple that ever could be. In my brain, I start taking off my list of sins. Do these sins add up to this punishment? Catholic guilt is strong, even when you're raised by atheists. Yesterday was my birthday. It's been almost 10 years since I was diagnosed with multiple myeloma. Thankfully, due to ongoing scientific innovations and a positive mind, I've been able to continue raising my children. Eli is now 22 and a member of the workforce. Harper, at 20, is a college sophomore. And my Adelaide will graduate from high school next month. I hope to be a grandmother someday, but hopefully not too soon. And Kevin and I may someday join the hashtag van life crowd. I've experienced much these last 10 years. One thing I know for sure is that God has not forsaken me. In fact, my life has only been more enriched through this experience. My children, my husband, my family, and my friends, my home and my community, these are what matter the most to me, that enrich me, that hold me up. And today I want to thank God and multiple myeloma for providing me with the perspective to know what is actually important. Thank you.
I Thirst, Jan Dennis.
Wow, powerful stuff tonight. I thirst. 2 words I've been contemplating all day. And I've been so thirsty today. It's been unbelievable how your mind can take over your physical body. I'm relating these and had the plan laid out for my sister and I. Made our decisions easy. She wanted no artificial means at the very end. So thank you, Mom. And when it was obvious it was getting towards the end, we had her at River Garden Memory Care Unit here in Jacksonville. And they said we could do hospice there in her room at River Garden. We didn't have to move her. Everything was in place and going as it should. We were a Methodist family, always went to church, went to NYF on Sunday night, went to Vacation Bible School. It was all in God's hands. And my sister flew down from Delaware. She was surrounded by family, my sister and I the most. And she had quit eating. It's natural process, keyword here. And then she quit drinking. So they told us time is near, maybe 48 hours, who knows, not long. Well, this whole process went 5 more days. And I was so distraught because there was nothing I could do.
to help. I was her healthcare surrogate. I was her attorney and a stand-in. Can't think of the word right now. And even though I've made so many decisions for her along the way, there was nothing I could do these 5 days in this process. So thinking about Jesus on the cross today and his words, I thirst. It goes way beyond thirsty, like I'm thirsty now, just talking about thirst, I'm thirsty. This is, when Mom started the morphine and the Ativan, she was breathing out of her mouth and she was trying to get more oxygen. I think some of you maybe have experienced this with loved ones. And so out of his lungs, so he had his mouth open for a long time in that Mideast sun, if you've been to the Mideast. So with Mom, her lips were just so chapped and parched and blistered. Her mucous membrane inside the mouth was so dry, there were white patches and red patches and film. I could go on, but I won't. You get the picture. So I was given by medical staff these little sticks that had pink sponges on the end. And a lot of you, I see, been through this. I hate these things because of what they represent in my life. So I would assuage her thirst beyond thirst, her dryness with these little sponges. I would go on the inside of her mouth and her teeth and her gums every so often to try to give some relief. And then today, as I was reading, I read about the hyssop stick with the sponge on the end. And they dipped it in the sour wine and put it to Jesus' lips because he said, I thirst. Been a rough day, you guys. So the importance of these words and how it relates to Mom now, looking back in my grief, is it's so important to me to realize that Jesus was definitely human. He was divine in human form. And what he went through on that cross proves it to me without a doubt. During this process, I told my sister, there's got to be a better exit strategy. This is just ridiculous, you know? In 2023, why are we experiencing this pain and suffering like Jesus did? I also told her another thing we will not put in Mom's obituary, that she died peacefully with a family by her side, because that's not happening here. But in looking back and in working through my grief, I see that Jesus had to say, I thirst. Those weren't random words he picked. He wasn't just complaining up there. He knew he was fulfilling a prophecy by saying those words. He knew he needed to get his parched mouth a little bit of relief because he had something else to say after me. And also, I fully believe he said, I thirst, because he was talking to me and others like me that have experienced this process with loved ones. And by saying, I thirst, to me, up on that cross, I know actually Mom was not suffering alone, that our family was not suffering alone, that he was there the whole time that I was saying, where is he? And then in losing my dear and precious Mom,
the human on planet Earth that loved me the most, without a doubt. Without a doubt. I have family that loves me. I'm very blessed. But my mom was the one who loved me unconditionally, loved me the most. I'm a mom, so I know how that feels. And then she's gone. It's such a lonely feeling. You miss that love so much. And tonight I think about Jesus. And he left me. And he loved me so much. So much more than even my mom loved me. And thankfully, because my parents did take us to church, I know the rest of the story. And I know in my times of grief that I have hope, and I know where that hope comes from.
It is finished. Tiffany Newton.
It is finished. With these words, Christ acknowledges that he has accomplished or finished his assignment on earth for the benefit of humankind. In accordance with the will of his Father, and in fulfillment of the prophecies of the scriptures as our Redeemer. For most of my life, being raised as a Jehovah's Witness, I took these words in all scripture at face value and was never allowed to question without reprimand any biblical teaching or prophecy or doctrine of the church. Especially to be a woman in the congregation, it meant that you were to be in a position of modest submission. If you ever thought about things and had questions or you had doubts, you were to speak to your husband. I have never had a husband, so there's that. So, I was baptized at 15 years old as a Jehovah's Witness, and, the demands of my life as a witness were fine for a while, and I did have some good days, happy times, good friends. And I spent many years as a true believer. And through the years, though, at times I was swallowing down some hard questions that I had. And I would pray, and I really felt guilty about any doubts that I have because I didn't want to displease God. I didn't want to not be in God's favor. Like I said, I was a true believer. I went out in the ministry. I talked to people from door to door about these things. I had Bible studies. I really believed. But I still had questions. I've always been an overthinker. I had questions about everything, the things from the church, the things in the Bible. So time passed, and no matter how hard I tried, I was seeing things that I didn't necessarily like in the congregation and thinking about things in the scriptures and that I questioned and had serious doubts about. Because I was taught that what I was learning was the truth, the absolute truth, unquestionably, and there was no other religion that had any path to survival for me except for this. So that was difficult, and it came to a point where my conscience, my own conscience, and my own feelings of what's right and wrong, and my own moral standards started to really have a hard time being in this faith. But still, for many years, I tried to push these feelings aside and ignore them and I just couldn't anymore. So I came to a point where I was like, this isn't the truth to me. This isn't my path to life or salvation or for happiness. And I felt like God was a happy God, and I was so unhappy, and I was so depressed. And I knew that even with all my questions, I knew that God did not want me to be an unhappy person. He wanted me to be happy. He wanted me to have joy. So I ended up writing a letter, and a letter of resignation, basically, from the church. And I broke all ties with the church, which has caused me to be shunned by many people that I love, including family members. And this is really difficult. So even still, it didn't diminish my desire to learn about God, to figure out who God really was to me, who Christ really was to me. And as a witness, you are not supposed to go to any of the church. So being away from that opened up the world to different ways of faith, of different churches, of different cultures. Because I always thought, this can't be the only faith where people are good, where people are worthy of salvation and God's love. So now I am still interested in religion. I have people of all different faiths. I have some people in my life that are atheists. I have some people that are agnostic. Sometimes I feel like I'm an agnostic. Sometimes I don't. And I try not to hold any animosity for anyone that's from my past life. So please don't think I'm trying to bash any religion at all. But this is just from my experience. So the world really opened up for me when I left the church. Some people were closed off from me, but I feel like the universe, God, or whatever has provided me with so much. When I missed my mom and I couldn't be around my mom as much, I had these mother figures coming into my life. When I couldn't be around my sister, I found all these sisterly type people coming into my life and filling in that space and nurturing me and loving me. And it really was an incredible feeling for me. So to say all that, at this time of the year, I still do think about Jesus, especially, because every year we did have a time, we didn't do Easter, but we had a time of the year that we talked about the memorial of Christ's sacrifice. But on this Good Friday, I think about Christ in his final words that I was asked to speak about. The words of "it is finished," and my mind ruminates on the life and the death and the resurrection of Christ and what that really means, to me at least. The cross that he had to bear was a lot, but I still have in my mind the questions: was this the only way to save us? Did it really work? If we say we're saved, are we really going to be saved? Could one man carry my sins, the burden of my sins and all of mankind? Why should he? What if he had said no to the assignment? What would happen then? And if God is love, why would he subject anyone, especially a beloved son, to be bullied, tortured, and killed? For that matter, anybody in the world that has to go through suffering. Why would he allow this? Why would any of us have to go through this? I carry these questions and many more questions still. I don't have the answers. I don't feel guilty about not having the answers anymore. And that is a lot. That is kind of a rebirth for me. So when I think about it is finished, my old life is finished, and I've opened the door to a new beginning, my own spring, my own resurrection. And I'm so grateful for that. And I'm grateful for you all letting me be here and listen to my story. Thank you.
Were you there, Mom Luth?
Were you there when they crucified my Lord? Were you there when they crucified my Lord? Oh, sometimes it causes me to tremble, tremble, tremble. Were you there when they crucified my Lord? Were you there when they hung him on a tree? Were you there when they hung him on the tree? Oh, sometimes it causes me to tremble, tremble, tremble. Were you there when they hung him on the tree? Were you there when they pierced him in his side? Were you there when they pierced him in his side? Sometimes it causes me to tremble, tremble, tremble. Were you there when they pierced him in his side? Were you there when he rose up from the dead? Were you there when he rose up from the dead? Oh, sometimes it causes me to tremble, tremble, tremble. Were you there when he rose up from the dead?
Amen.
Into your hands I commend my spirit. Mary Beth Levens.
So there I was, 18 years old, sitting in Atlanta Airport, waiting on the airplane, about 6 hours late. It's spring break of 2002. Half my friends are headed overseas, the other half are headed to Panama City. I'm going to Boston, and my mom is going with me. Not the spring break that I had a picture of. It started when my mom noticed she went to go get some Tylenol one day, and she said, "Why is this bottle empty?" She had just bought it the month before. It was like 800, Costco size bottle. And a lot of it was just gone. And she didn't realize I had been taking it because I kept getting a headache. And the headache just wouldn't go away. But I was working full time and I was going to college, or not college, high school full time. And helping my parents out because, it's 2002 and things are a little bit quiet and things are a little bit rough and we're all just a little bit scared. So we're just doing the best that we can. So I wasn't complaining about this headache. I've got Tylenol. That's what that's for. I don't want to complain. So my mom makes me go to the doctor. We go to the doctor, and the doctors noticed that my field of vision is worse. I'm bumping into things, and we just don't know what's going on. So he said, "Well, I've got to send you to the doctor up in Boston." And I'm like, "No, sir, I'm supposed to be joining the military here in a few minutes, and I don't have time for any of this. There are things that are happening and things that we got to do." But, had to book a plane ticket to Boston instead, so I'm waiting and I'm scared because I don't know what they're going to tell me. I don't know what's happening. This is not fair. So we fly up there, and I'm from Atlanta, I'm from Georgia, and I've never been to a town that big. I mean, I've been to New York City, and that was big, but Boston was a little bit different. Get up to the doctor, and he runs me through all the tests, and he's like, "So I've got some news to tell you," and I'm like, "Yeah, so can I go home? Can I go to boot camp now?" And he's like, "No, you're not going to be going to the military at all." And I'm like, "Well, why not?" And he's like, "Well, you've got Usher syndrome." And I'm from Atlanta. I'm like, I know I like Usher, but not that much, And he's like, "No, there was this rare disease that slowly caused me to go deaf and blind." And I'm like, "What? What do you mean?" And when you're 18 years old and you're ready to be an adult, you've got big ideas, you've got big plans, you're gonna go do big stuff. You've been dreaming about it for years. My parents can't tell me what to do. At that point, I'd actually already moved out. I was so bent on teaching them that I could be. I was trying to teach my parents that I was independent, that I moved out, and they were like, "Thanks, you buy your own groceries now." I was shopping in their fridge. I was 18. uh, so that week, we stayed up in Boston for a week. And I had a bunch of tests we had to do. And coming home that week, I was numb. And I don't think anybody knew what to tell me, because what do you tell an 18-year-old that just got told, hey, you're going to be completely deaf and blind by the time you're 21? And I'm like, nah, I got stuff to do. I don't have time for this. I got things to do, people to help and place to go and yeah, no. I'm devastated and I'm mad and I'm arguing. Have you ever tried to argue with God? That's a losing battle, right? So I'm like, what would you have me do? And I grew up in a church, and the theme was God won't give you anything stronger or anything harder than you can take. You remember this thing? And it's running through my head, and I'm like, listen, I don't know what you got planned for me up there, but I can't handle this, you know? You made a mistake. You made a mistake. So I did what any 18-year-old did, went and made some bad choices to prove that I was an adult, and I don't even know how I graduated high school. I think they felt sorry for me, and they were like, let's go ahead and get her out of here. So a couple months later, I found myself on another plane, and this time I'm going back to Boston. I have been looking for months for a way to serve my country, and I can't find a way. And there's this group of volunteers for kids who are 17 to 24, and it's called AmeriCorps, and you go up there and you volunteer across the city. And they'll give you some money to go to college. And I was like, well, I didn't study, so this is a better idea than nothing. And I get up there and I go. And when I tell you that in a year of doing the volunteer service, and I'm volunteering all across the school, or all across the city, I'm working with kids in Title I school. I'm volunteering in domestic violence shelter. I'm volunteering at the zoo, at the New England Aquarium, Special Olympics. I'm doing all of this stuff, and then I realized that just because someone tells us this thing is going to happen, or our plan didn't happen the way that we were expecting them to happen, it doesn't mean that it's all over. Maybe that moment or that one dream that you had was all over, but it wasn't all over. Well, then I go to college and I'm waiting because I'm not turned 21. I'm not 21 yet. Where's the deafness? Where's the blindness? And I'm waiting. And when you're waiting for fear like that, you kind of want to put it in front of you. And I think many of you know what I mean. When it gets real hard, and you just don't know, when there's no answer, and there's no one to turn to, and all you can do is say, okay, I'm just going to do the one foot in front of the other. And over those years, I lived all across this country. I've moved 63 times. I have worked probably 20 or 30 different jobs. I've been in 16 different schools, and I just met so many people. And I saw so many things. Our God is one of infinite miracles. Sometimes there are things that we're the only people that saw it. There are things that you've seen that is just between you and God. And there's something about knowing on a weekend like this where you're just sitting back and you're looking at every hard moment you've come across your life and you say, I didn't think I could bear that. And you did. And that's what we do. We bear it. We bear it for each other. We bear it for ourselves. And God of infinite miracles, right? Thank you.
will remain placed in the From the cross, forgive them, for they do not know what they do. May we forgive when we are able, especially when our lights go out. From the cross, today you will be with me in paradise. May we rejoice when we are able, even when our lights go out. From the cross, behold your son, behold your mother. May we find love and support and family when we are in need, especially when our lights go out. From the cross, my God, why have you forsaken me? May we demand answers to crushing questions, especially when our lights go out. To the cross, I thirst. May we find the refreshment that we sorely need, especially when our lights go out. From the cross, it is finished. May we find relief from our striving, especially when our lights go out. Into your hands I commit my spirit. May we be held in the hands of love, especially when our lights go out. The last sound from Jesus on the cross was not a word, but with a loud cry, he gave up his spirit. May our passing be known by those we love and by those who love us, especially